You're listening to the Rodney Anderson Radio Show, right here on 1190 AM.
All righty, good afternoon, and welcome to the show. We are glad to have everybody with us today, and we have some great special guests. Always quoted all over the Dallas Morning News, all over Texas, and he's the foreclosure king in statistics. He's going to talk about the DFW Metroplex, how real estate is growing. George Roddy Sr. will be joining us this afternoon. You've heard all of his stuff. He is the Foreclosure Listing Services. That's his company. Every single week he's in there. George Roddy Sr. will be joining us. Headline news just coming out. DFW home foreclosure filings fall about 50% in June. Well, let's talk to the expert. Rob, which George is it?
Let's see.
George Benson.
Nope.
George C. Scott.
Nope.
George Reed.
No.
George Wallace.
No.
George Hallis. George
Nope.
Washington. George Washington.
Truly a
Help me
pioneer
out.
of the commercial real estate information services, George Roddy began serving the Dallas-Fort Worth real estate community in September of 1970 with the introduction of a commercial real estate sales report known as the Roddy Report. As a natural progression, he went on to develop one of the first online commercial real estate sales databases in the country. In 1989, Roddy went on to further expand his services by purchasing Foreclosure Listing Services, Inc. It gives all kinds of commercial and residential real estate out there. In 2000, in order to add more meaning to his existing services, Roddy purchased the commercial property inventory and made it into DFW Real Smart as it is known. George is quoting the Dallas Morning News, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, the Wall Street Journal, the London Financial Times, the Denver Post, and much more. He is truly iconic, as Pete Kerrigan would call him in the industry. George, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure, Rodney. Thanks for having me.
George, have you ever seen a housing market go from so good to so bad to gangbusters?
Well, we've just seen it. Seen it in the DFW area as far as foreclosures go. The market is just turned from one extreme to another, and you just wonder where the next shoe is going to drop.
Are you concerned that there's another shoe going to drop down the road?
I'm concerned because it always happens. It's called trends. It's called cycles in real estate. We think that this will last forever, and that's one of the biggest mistakes we can make because you just never know. One little blip on the national scene, on the national economy, and it can all change. So you've got to make hay while the sun shines.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's a little bit different, George, right now versus the old days, lending is so tight right now, and you probably hear that all over. Stuart Miller, I believe his name, the head of Lennar Homes, was on the other day talking about credit being tight. I don't think that we're going to have a big bubble until we start seeing credit loosening up, which it always goes in cycles every 20 years. But digging back into foreclosures right now, give us an update of what's going on in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in foreclosures. Are we real low on that area, and which areas are better than others?
We're very low on foreclosures. In fact, some of the numbers that I jotted down, we can look at year-ago numbers and compare them to June of this year. And, for instance, Dallas County is down 48% over year-ago numbers. Tarrant is down 50%, Collin is down 54%, and Denton County is down 53%. And then you can go on down to Travis County, down 56% over last year, and San Antonio, the Bexar County area, down 45%.
We live in the United States of Texas, George.
That's exactly right. It's a wonderful place to be.
Yeah,
it really is.
And in the Dallas Morning News that you're always quoted in, fewer than 1,400 houses in the four-county area are posted for sale by lenders next month, down 50% as you're talking about.
Yep.
There's just very little out there. So foreclosures, Fannie Mae was foreclosing on properties left and right, and they were giving them to realtors. And many of these realtors, they were getting 12 houses or 20 houses to list, and now all of a sudden they're getting one every 180 days. Pete, I know at your office, some people, that's all they focus on their business, and then they've had to make some big changes.
They've had to completely change their whole marketing plan because they were dealing with a minimum of 10 to 20 listings, and they're all dried up now. They're saying there's nothing there.
George, on the commercial side, I see cranes going up everywhere and building coming back in the DFW area. What's the commercial look like in today's market?
The commercial foreclosure postings have dropped just as high as the residential, in fact, probably more. We've seen in Dallas County, comparing year-ago numbers, about a 70% decline from June of 2013. So we have seen the same kind of thing happening with commercial as we have seen with residential. You know, we have properties are hard to get. The owners are holding on to them because of the rate of return. The cap rates are up. And so obviously if you've got a good cap on a property, you don't want to sell it. So much the same with commercial as residential.
One of the things that happens are, you know, it's amazing the trends are almost the same, the residentials and the commercials out there. But take us through what you envision, because you've been in this so long, George. Take us a 1 year out and a 3 year out. Do you think foreclosures are going to continue to drop?
We thought we saw a stopping point month before last, and sure enough, it just kept going. So it's very hard to every month we say that it's about the end of it, or they bottomed out. And if you go back in time, Rodney, to back in the early 90s when we saw very few foreclosures. In fact, in 1994, we saw about the same number of foreclosures in Dallas County as we saw in June of 2014. The bottom line is that at some point it has to drop, and at some point, due to the fact that this market that we're in, the DFW area, has grown so much that you would think that at some point soon, and within the next 2 to 3 months, that we could see the bottom of the drop. But going out a year, I think for sure we won't see too many more foreclosure postings than we are seeing now.
One of the things, you know, when people are buying foreclosures, what are some of the most important factors that people need to consider, George?
One thing that they have to look at is, if they can, they have to look at the inside of the house, and because that is the hardest thing to do when you're buying a foreclosure. You can drive the property, look at the outside of the property, but it's very difficult to get inside the house. You can't go up to the owner and say, "Hi, I'm here to see your house," because it's posted for foreclosure. Mm-hmm. So most of the time you have to look at the outside and gauge that to the inside of the house, and if it's a dump on the outside, it's got probably worse on the inside. The other thing that you have to do is bid at the auction. If you're going to buy it at the auction, you have to bid smart. And the going price in Dallas County is 64% of market value. In other words, the average bid on a house in Dallas County is 64% of market. So people are bidding very cautiously on these homes to make sure that they're getting a good deal.
Well, and one of the things that's out there is, you know, George, you do all the Roddy reports and all that. Tell us about the Roddy report and how people can access it.
The Roddy report is the commercial side of our business, and that is www.roddyreport.com. And that has 15 years of sales data for commercial real estate. Also, we have the 4-county tax roll where you can access tax roll information also. The foreclosure site, Rodney, is at www.flsonline.com.
And there's lots of information on there. People should jump on there. George Roddy, he's a senior. He's great at what he does. Quoted all over the country, the Wall Street Journal, the Dallas Morning News locally. And, George, we want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rodney.
You're always fantastic. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we'll look forward to having you back on soon.
Glad to.
Thank you, sir.
George Benson, George C. Scott, George Reeves,
George, good stuff.
I mean, it's always information. I mean, when you're sitting there looking at properties, foreclosures were a major problem. They drove values down. And they were getting, you know, because you can control how you buy your house and how you take care. But where people are getting killed was you can't control how your neighbor pays their bills and whether they're going to get foreclosed upon.
Right.
So when they're out there and you have these foreclosures that are out there, some of these new communities were just freaking decimated, Pete.
Oh, they were. And property values plummeted because of a few people's mistake. Everybody suffered. But it's a whole different ball game today, Rodney.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy right now what's happening in there. We'll talk about that when we come back. 1-800-EXPRESS is our number, 1-800-397-7377. You can always email us during the show, rodney@rodneyradio.com. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, go on to rodneyanderson.com. You can also listen to us every Monday through Friday from 3 to 4 p.m. Yeah, we had a military veteran from Afghanistan tell us that he's podcasting our show all the time on rodneyanderson.com.
Sweet.
That and a whole lot more when we come back. We'll be right back with more of the show.